Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Jodo Cast, your Star Wars gaming podcast. This is episode 88, just like the torture droid. My name is Evan Lewis. I am, of course, joined by Leo Andrew.
It's episode 8. It's not 8D8.
It's not 8D8? Oh, all right.
No, I'm saying it's not episode 8D8. Although we should temporarily change our numbering sequence.
I wonder if the same number of people would get that reference as get JodoCast. And we have a guest. Who, Leo, is our guest tonight?
Our guest is John. He is not Joe.
Hello.
He's our replacement. He's our backup Joe tonight.
The understudy.
Yes. Backup Joe named John.
You were actually in Joe's wedding, though, right?
Yep, and Joe was in mine. So, yeah, Joe and I, we can be interchangeable based on that, right?
They're pretty much the same guy, so.
Basically.
All right, excellent. All right, well, good to have you. Appreciate you coming on with us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Oh, our pleasure. And we're also always happy to say thank you to all the wonderful people who have given their time, talents, and attention over at patreon.com/thejodocast and have been great supporters. We couldn't do this without them. We are continuing to find ways to innovate and bring new content to you, and we love being able to do that. We love our patrons. Thank you all so much for the help that you give us. And if you don't know what we're talking about, again, you can check it out at patreon.com/thejodocast and see all the great things that patrons do for us and the cool ways that we say thank you to them. And let's see here. If you go to JodoCast... What?
I was going to say, now, John, as a patron, we should have him give a testimonial,
As a patron. Well, I've been
the movie box quote.
Sure. So I've been a patron for 15 days, and it's been great.
Cheers.
It's been great. I've been consuming content far longer than that, and it was about time. I figured I would put my money where my content was being ingested from.
Clearly, you've been listening to too many NPR member drives.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I do wonder how much we sound like that when we do the Patreon promo, but all you got to do is sign up for that $10 a month, and we'll send you a mug if you're lucky.
Oh, maybe I'll be lucky.
I have wanted mugs. Let's do some mugs. What do you say?
I would I would pay $10 for a JodoCast mug.
It can be done.
There we go. You have one backer for $10 mugs.
Sweet. And not a mighty mug either. We're not talking about those things, people.
No. I've got the one mighty mug that I need.
Lando?
The Lando.
I've got my Revan.
Oh. Okay.
No.
Agreed.
Lando.
Agreed. Nope. Shush.
No.
Shush.
I
figured that would pique Evan's interest.
I do wish we could make the claim, I wish we could do, our local PBS station, and when they do their member drive, they get to talk all about how your money lets them play red-green. I wish we had we had content as cool as the red-green show.
I'm pretty sure Clumsy and Random is our red-green.
Okay. Yes. Okay. And if you'd have no idea what the Red Green Show is, you obviously live too far away from Canada.
It's true. True story. And so, as I was saying before I was appropriately interrupted, if you go to jodocast.com, you can find a link to the Patreon. You can also find links to all our social media. Most especially, though, we want you to check out our Discord server, where you don't have to be a patron to come just hang out and talk with us all day, every day. I'm still pretty sure all day, every day is how often there's a conversation going on there. There is basically, yeah. You can come on middle of the night and talk Destiny or Legion with somebody.
Or you could play trivia by yourself at 2 a.m. like I did.
Oh man. Hey, you know what?
So that's what happens with a newborn. Yeah, we have a newborn, and I needed something to do when he was awake.
Boom, man, you're just a great commercial for us. We should have you do all the sound bites.
Putting my airtime to good use.
There you go, man.
Yeah, that one's not quite as good of a testimonial.
I don't.
Join our Discord server. John says it's a great place to be when he's really bored.
Or, if you're at work and no one monitors your websites, it's great. You can just chat about how they wreck the meta in all your favorite games. And also at jodocast.com, we've got a feedback survey up at the top where you can tell us what you love, what you hate, and what you want to see different with our site. If you want to yell at us for not doing enough RPG sessions, you're well within your right to do so. And I heartily back anyone who says that.
Tell them how well our understudy Joe is doing tonight.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Let everyone know, hey, we want that guy. Bring that guy back. He really makes the show. He really ties the show together. I don't know what happened. I was in the middle of a burp. I don't know what happened to everybody else. All right, so that's housekeeping. Let's talk about what we've been playing. Guests first, please.
Sure. Well, I've been playing mostly Destiny. We had a store championship this previous weekend in Bismarck, North Dakota. 8 people there, and I took first with Elite Snoke, Elite Bazine, and First Order Stormtrooper. So that was fun. I never had done that well at a tournament above our normal local stuff, so that was great. So I'd been practicing for that beforehand and looking for a bunch of decks to try, and ended up with that. So that was my limited with a young baby sitting around in our house now. I had limited time to practice, but it was got as much as I could for the past couple months here. And other than that,
practice.
Other than that, I play
real men don't practice at all and build their decks the night before the tournament.
Yeah, that's why we did so well at LCG, right?
That's why I do so well at all the events I go to.
I did Audible the night before. I was gonna play Yoda Cassian aggro, but then I swapped. So that's close to coming up with it the night before. But yeah, other than that, I play Galaxy of Heroes extensively. At this point, it's basically because I put almost 3 years into it, and why stop now? It's kind of sad.
I thought you were going to say, I put X amount of dollars into it,
no,
so now I can't stop.
No,
I feel obligated to play.
I put like $40 into it in 3 years, so I think that's about enough.
That's not too bad. I think I bought like the newbie starter pack thing back when I used to play, but I think that's maybe the only actual cash I ever threw in the game.
Wait, I think it's actually $50 now because I spent $10 on the Bastilla pack since it was KOTOR stuff.
I was going to say they did just release a bunch of KOTOR stuff, so you're well within your rights.
Yes. I figured it was worth it. But yeah, that's what I've been playing.
Awesome. Leo.
I've been playing some Legion. That's fun.
Oh yeah, we know.
Actually, we just got to play some on one of our local guys commissioned this amazing Sullust themed table. Like, actually, the whole table is based on the Sullust map from the old Battlefront.
That sounds really cool.
Not the new one. And it looks so amazing. If people have been on like the in like some of the Legion Facebook groups, like the Legion Terrain Facebook groups or something like that, they may have seen the guy who made the table, Sean Morris, posted like progress stuff on Facebook all the time in those groups. But he just got the table delivered to him this weekend. So went over there last night. We played on it some. I recorded some. So hopefully we'll have a video whipped together kind of showing off the game and just showing off just how cool this table looks eventually.
Eventually.
Yes, eventually.
All right. Well, that's something to look forward to then.
And then I haven't been playing, but I've been doing some deck building for store championships that I'm going to this weekend. Are you going to the Grand Forks? Are you going to the Grand Forks one at all this weekend, John?
No, I'm probably not going to be able to make any of the other ones. So I'm glad I got to Bismarck.
Yeah, I'm going to the one in Bemidji this weekend, because it just worked out that I'm going there to see some friends, and so that live in Bemidji now. So I'm gonna go there and play in that store's tournament.
Oh, nice.
And I'm glad that the Grand Forks one is also the same day. So that means that's probably where most of the players, like all the Winnipeg and Fargo player are going to go. They're going to go to Grand Forks. They're not going to go to Bemidji to play. So I won't have to worry about any of those guys. I'll just have to. Not that I'm saying that there's probably not people in Bemidji more prepared and better at the game than me, but I already know that there's lots of people in Fargo better than me. So
yeah, they don't know the way you play, so there'll be a leg up. Of course, you don't know the way they play either. But,
yeah, and I'm not really going, on meta, so I'm not necessarily expecting to win anyways. I think I still haven't nailed down exactly what I'm going to be doing, but I'm thinking I'm going to run New Kylo and Price.
There you go. Or crap, as the kids say. Kylo Ren, Arinda Price. Crap.
Crap. So how about you, Evan?
Well, listeners of our Gen Con episodes know that we got to play both the living card game and the customizable card game. And
yeah, I guess I could have mentioned those since this is our first official episode post Gen Con. But
yeah, I mean, I would imagine that most regular listeners did listen to those, but I do want to, make mention one more time that I beat you at CCG. So I mean, you know what? That's the one thing that I can ever claim to have beaten you at. So I'm going to milk it for what it's worth.
You would probably beat me at Magic if we played like a serious game where we didn't just not counting just those stupid little free decks. But if we played like an actual game where we both like built a deck, I'm pretty sure you'd beat me.
Fast forward another 88 episodes later, and remember the one time that I beat you in the card game.
That's right. The customizable card game. That's the important point.
No, if you come up to Worlds this year, we're going to throw down again, and things will be different.
Jodo cast a rematch of the century of the millennium.
Well,
that doesn't really need to have like wrestling stuff.
Oh yeah,
you might have beaten me once, but next time, brother, you're going down.
Yes, I would, if not be able to be there, watch and try to listen for any of that.
Hey, yeah, you.
We'll make a big thing of it too.
Yes,
you might be able to make it to Worlds next year too, because you won't have a newborn baby.
Yeah, exactly.
There you go.
There we go. There we go.
Darn babies.
I still don't get why you let that
get in the way at all.
Yeah, I mean it's not like the baby was already born. It's not like she was having the baby at the time. So.
It was that the baby Bjorn was a little too small or too big for him. He was too small for it at the time. Just
you could just strap him on and bring him to the games.
And we didn't get the Moby wrap yet.
Like Yoda in a backpack.
Right. Make it
just
thematic.
Start doing flips.
Yes.
I hear that's good for babies.
Exactly.
I don't know. Maybe I heard wrong.
Gravity will keep him in there. Or
exactly.
Inertia and all that good physics stuff. Nah, I missed the opportunity. Next year.
Yeah. Oh, but I had mentioned to Christian that you and I, Leo, we had the same record coming out of the final LCG tournament.
Oh yeah,
we both went 1-2, with one being against our invisible
that's right.
opponent.
You guys had the drop that didn't drop.
yeah. The guy who just walked away, who didn't actually tell anybody that he dropped,
Got his promos and got out of there.
I was kind of surprised that the TOs didn't just drop him after he didn't show up at all for that one round.
Yeah, they just forgot. You know what? I'm fine with that.
Oh, I did forget.
So-
I did forget something that I'm going to be playing. I've been preparing to GM a Edge of the Empire beginner session for some friends, so hopefully we'll be getting into that soon.
Excellent. That's always such a great experience. Getting is it a new group or like old group playing a new game?
I had DM'd some D&D for them last year, and then one of them the year before that. So it's kind of we all like Star Wars, so let's try this out. Because I have all these books and no one to play with them with.
Nice, awesome. I can't wait to hear how that goes. Because if listeners haven't checked out our Discord, we often get on to the RPG section and, regale everybody else with our game sessions, and it's a lot of fun to hear what everybody else is up to with their games, and it's encouraging, makes you want to get out there and do it yourself. So we will look forward to hearing how this goes for you.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing how it goes as well. It's actually the RPG section. I don't remember who it was, but was talking about some ideas for their campaign, and that made me want to really get into this again.
See, there you go. In fact, the only other thing that I've been playing is more than non-Star Wars RPG, but Blades in the Dark. It's super good, and you could easily, if you were not a fan of the FFG system, which some people aren't, they just don't really like that one, but they want something that's not D20, you could easily take this or Scum and Villainy, make yourself a Star Wars campaign out of that, and it'd be a lot of fun. So one of these days we'll get back to some actual Star Wars RPG, I think, because we left the crew on a successful job having been done, and they're rolling in credits, so who knows what they'll get up to next. So that is what we've been playing, and you two, having mentioned Destiny, it's been a little while since we've devoted an episode to Destiny talk, and I guess I should fess up. I probably haven't said it too much on air, but Destiny has kind of lost me. When it first came out, I was not hyped for it at all, not one bit. Then I played it and liked it, and then it seemed like the meta with every set, when every set comes out, the meta just becomes solid. It just hits a point, people find what it is, and then it just stays there, and there's seemingly no variance to it. So how has that changed? Has it changed at all? What's happening right now with the meta? Because I haven't really paid much attention to it lately because it kind of lost me for that reason.
Sure. Well, right now the meta is kind of we've hit a point where Mill has become not just okay, but dominant at this point. It won actually the big Gen Con events, but actually, so going back quite a little bit, Legacies, that set was the most recent set for 6 months, so that's probably why it kind of got stale. So instead of getting something released every 4 months, we had an extra 2 months of basically we found the best deck in the format, and it got stuck for 2 months. So that's probably one reason why it kind of got stale. A lot of the Destiny players, I hang out in a few of the Discords and occasionally chat and stuff, but a lot of us were pretty tired of Legacies by those last couple months after Worlds there. So it's so there are a lot of new things that were coming up. Some things that some holdovers with some new tricks from legacies with the Empire, or it's not Empire at War, the Way of the Force meta. But now, so yeah, with Gen Con, Mill has kind of taken the driver's seat, so to speak.
Yeah, and I've seen a lot of people complaining about how it's just not that fun to play against in this. I mean, in this particular game, and I think part of the reason is just because you've only got a 30 card deck,
right?
You play against a mill in something like Magic the Gathering, and you've got 60 cards. There's bound to be, dead cards like your lands. At a certain point in the game, you don't really care if your lands get milled out so much and things like that.
Right, but with Mill and Destiny, that's well, especially with the current deck that is. So it's it is Elite Yoda, Anakin, or so. Pod Racing Kid Anakin and Cassian Andor. So that is 27. Yippee! That's 27 health right there. So so just to go into a little bit more of the Destiny cards and things. So there's 2 cards that are called Force Illusion and Second Chance that basically give you extra effective health because of either blocking damage or making it so your character is not defeated when they otherwise would be. So this deck would have essentially well over 40, or could get to well over 40 effective health because of those 2 cards. Versus when you're playing a mill deck, a normal deck.
Imagine if they hadn't nerfed Ammo Belt also.
Oh my gosh, that would be so terrible. Like it was terrible before this, but yeah, oh my gosh. But yeah, so if you're playing against mill, your deck is essentially 30 health because you have 30 cards. So you're basically going on a 40 plus versus 30 health deck, basically.
Let me ask you this really quick, just because I'm trying to put all the cards together in my head. Is this primarily just affecting, and my terminology is probably going to be a little off, but is it just trilogy?
No,
or is it standard also? If I'm getting it right,
this one's getting into this one's affecting standard right now because
second chance is from
Awakenings, and then Force Illusions from Spirit of Rebellion, which is also of the Awakenings trilogy.
Okay, so basically, it's not necessarily something that they have only recently just implemented. It's just that they're making more cards that have the synergy to create those instances within standard.
Right. Well, essentially it became the perfect storm with this set because Yoda, or there have been some mill decks before, but they were all pretty slow. Like you had to do one thing at a time. Yeah, they had Yoda who could give you a little bit of dice chaining, but so now they have basically Yoda and Cassian by themselves can get you about 4 cards with if they roll if they roll right. They'll take 4 cards out of your deck either from hand or either from hand or out of the deck itself. So that's just sitting there with their dice naturally, and that's not including any other upgrades that you may put on them or have any there's the support Anakin's Pod Racer can either take out of the hand or off the deck as well. So that's just with the characters by themselves. They're taking out they could take up to 4 a round right there. So it's just kind of the perfect storm with all these characters and the way the points line up, plus the cards that have existed beforehand.
So do you think we'll see a big change? Because, I mean, we are in August right now, so it's not too many months away before, and again, if my timing is off on this, but they tend to, their plan, I shouldn't say tend to since they haven't done it yet, but unless I'm mistaken, they are planning to do rotation at the top of the year?
Yeah, whenever go ahead, Leo.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's when the next trilogy comes out, when the next that the first set in the next trilogy is going to should have more starter boxes and stuff. And then at that point, all the Awakenings trilogy should rotate out. And it sounds like, yeah, I mean, we haven't got any exact dates, but it sounds like should be top of the year here, top of sometime Q1 2019. But
depends on
depends.
But I suppose who knows what we get with that then? Could be even worse.
I mean, granted, they did say during the in-flight report, they were like, yeah, we know we kind of messed up here with Across the Galaxy and taking so long with, or I mean, not Across the Galaxy, but with Legacies and taking so long for Way of the Force. And they were like, but we're gonna get Across the Galaxies out soon, but we're not going to tell you anything about it or give you any new information, even though that's kind of what people are expecting us to do at Gen Con. Moving on to the next topic. I was disappointed by their Destiny talk at Gen Con.
Oh, I imagine lots of people were.
Yeah, so it's the nice thing will be that even if they do something to curtail Mill a little bit, if it still ends up being strong, that a lot of these offending cards and these cards are also found in more than just Mill decks too. They're pretty. They're one of those couple of those cards that when they come out on the board, you're just like, oh, I got to deal with this. But so if at the very least they'll be rotating out, sometime next year. But that may be too much. That may be too long for some people or some decks. If there's things that don't work because these cards are out, then that might be hamstringing a lot of otherwise viable decks.
Yeah, so a few days ago, I came across an article from the Hyperloops, which is another Destiny website. It's a Destiny-focused website, Destiny-focused podcast and stuff. And they had an article basically where one of the guys was advocating he thinks that Destiny should be pumped up to go from 30 cards in a deck to 40. And part of his logic is one, okay, this is going to make Mill less effective without actually nerfing any cards. Just by the fact that your deck has more cards in it, Mill then becomes less effective, obviously. A couple other things is doing that, he argues would allow for more variety in decks. I mean, again, I think that's just obvious when you've got 10 extra cards in your deck. Yeah, there's going to be more variety out there. And another thing that I found, another point he made that I found interesting, I think, was that it makes it a little bit harder to consistently mulligan for those cards you need. Because the way Mulligan works in Destiny always kind of bothered me. The fact that you can pitch up to all 5 of your cards if you want, and draw up a whole new hand, no penalty or anything. And with only 30 cards in your deck, that means, I forget exactly what the probabilities were. I've seen some people have worked out the probabilities, but the odds of actually getting the card you want or the card you need to start out with are actually incredibly high, which makes some of these decks that need that one card to kick off their engine or need, it makes them incredibly consistent.
Right. So, for example, in the Mill deck that we were talking about, there are 3 cards that they're probably going to be wanting to at least have in their opening hand. So, not including any removal or anything like that. So there's Anakin's Pod Racer, there is the Ascension Gun, and Force Meditation. And all 3 of those are able to help Mill off the top of their deck. Now you get in Destiny, you get 2 copies of a card in your deck. You're allowed up to 2 as things stand right now. So that's 6. Basically, you're looking for one of 6 cards in your opening hand. So going to their article that they had, with the about consistency in the mulligan. So that's 91% chance if you mulligan all 5 cards to get that in your opening hand, or one of those 6 basically in your opening hand, which is crazy.
Yeah, and I think I've seen people say that if you're playing against like the Yoda, Cassian, Anakin deck, and they drop that Anakin's pod racer out turn 1, it's like at that point there's almost no point in playing anymore.
It's an uphill battle. Like, there are some decks that probably, if you can get lucky and if you can spike Anakin off the board right away, you might have an easier time. But even with Yoda and Cassian there, that's, those two still advance the Mills win condition just with their dice alone.
Yeah, so what do you think of the idea of going up to 40 cards?
So I guess I'll preface with that this is my first CCG that I've ever played competitively, so I don't really have a lot of outside context for any of this. But I agree with their general sentiments about 40 cards. I think one thing that I would that they mentioned that I would really enjoy is that 10 cards gives you a lot more variety that you can bring in, because right now there are so many cards, and there will be, so once the next set comes out, there will be 6 sets worth of cards plus a 2-player starter. That's so many things that at this point it used to be where you're like, okay, well, here's the 20 cards that I know are really good. Here's the few that that maybe like the 4 or 5 that I have for my own personal flavor. And here's the 5 that are kind of we'd call acceptable. Let's just throw them in because we don't have anything else. But at this point, we might be we have 30 cards in our deck, and we're excluding, 5, 6 cards that we normally would have included beforehand. But now it's like, well, this is a good card, but now there's another card that I have in here. There's not a lot of room for personal flavor either. I mean, there still might be some decks that still have 26 mandatory cards, but then with some room. But now there's just so many cards that I kind of wish would see play. But at this point, it's like, well, it's not as good as this card, or it's more conditional than this card, so we're just not going to include it. So I think that is something that I would really like about a 40 card deck.
Yeah, definitely the 30 card does definitely narrow down the field of cards, and so you kind of end up seeing the same cards all the time. I mean,
and I think it's probably not a huge thing to mention, since I don't think that draft is nearly as big of a consideration here as it is in Magic. Like, they actually test very hard to make sure that the limited environment is as viable or more viable than the standard or the constructed in Magic. But we are just talking about constructed, and I would guess that these concerns are really not anywhere to be found in limited formats of Destiny.
Yeah, I haven't been able to play as much limited as I would like to, and mill is actually is a pretty viable strategy in limited, but it's not as egregious, and it's more of you might mill yourself out even if you're trying to be, or mill them out even though you're trying to be a damage deck, simply because it's a lot less efficient than constructed.
yeah, and even in limited also, you have a little bit of a small, because I think, don't you usually build a 25 card deck? And
for Magic it's
no.
What?
Well, I'm talking Destiny. It's
Well, Destiny is still, you can have between 20 and 30 cards depending on.
Okay, yeah, that's right. That's what it is. You can have anywhere in that range. So
I thought it was still 30. No?
Yeah.
Okay. Huh.
Yep, it just doesn't have since you may get a really, really crappy draft. They allow less than 30.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, so just some other thoughts that I maybe have on the 40 cards in 40 minutes. I've only ever had one Destiny game go to time, and that was against a slower mill deck, and I mean, so I really don't have any other perspective on that. So I really have no.
Oh, so just for some context here, because I don't think we mentioned that part before. Another thing that this guy was advocating was to increase official round time up from 35 to 40 minutes. to go along with the deck size increase and stuff like that. But I'm kind of in the same boat as you, John, where I've never really had a game, or I mean, I have on occasion had games go to time, but very rarely. I mean, Destiny games tend to get decided so quickly usually.
Yeah, it's mostly
And here's
25 minutes usually.
Here's another question for you, since I haven't done really much of any, well, I guess any competitive Destiny yet. Unless I'm mistaken, you don't do a best of 3 match, right?
Yeah, you don't do best of 3 until you get to the top cut. If there's a top cut, for like at the store championship I went to with 8 people, there was no point in doing a top cut, so we just all did best of 1.
Is it just in the interest of making things go faster and encourage more participation, or is it a fundamental design thing, do you think?
I think it's just, because, you do usually, you get, once you have a few people, you do 5-6 rounds of Swiss where it's just best of 1. And because it's all just Swiss rounds. So, if you lose one, you've got some other rounds to make your games up. So,
yeah. So I'm not sure what their intent eventually was, because I know there's some of the other games I'm sure that must go like 2 best of 3 or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, because you can do. I'm pretty sure a Magic round is 70 minutes. I think it's 70. It might be 50. Boy, I should really know. But you can get through 3 games without too much hassle. And from what you've said, Destiny goes even quicker than that, obviously.
Yeah, if they bump the round time up to it like an hour, you could. Most people would probably most rounds you could. You could do 2 games, for sure most of the time.
Right. So I think in competitive level, there's I think like a top cut might give you 90 minutes for, I think it's 90 minutes for best of 3. So most of those will get done by that time, but with the exception being some of the slower mill, or if there's people that are really thoughtful about their moves and actions and things. But from what I gather, for the most part, and what I've seen, it seems like a lot of them get done before that 90 minutes is up.
So yeah, I guess I can't really speak to why they just do a best of 1, since basically all their other games. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that. There's some like X-Wing and that stuff. That's all best of 1 in rounds of Swiss also. But the game takes a lot longer.
Right. So Destiny kind of is like, I guess if there's a reason, I've never thought about it or been able to find it, but it just seems kind of arbitrary. Or maybe it was because this is what we did for X-Wing, so this is what we did with our other stuff, so here's what we're going to do with Destiny. So I don't know.
For me, I guess it doesn't really bother me, because it just means that when I go to events, they're done nice and quick. It's not an all day thing for me. I can go, an event can start at noon and I can still get home in time for supper.
Right, yeah, that's what I really enjoy. I had been to a couple of X-Wing casual tournaments, and those got to be long days on occasion. So I really like the store championship that I went to. We were done in 2 hours. We started at 2, we were done at 4.
2 hours?
Yeah.
Jeez. That's not even enough. You only played 3 games?
Yep, because with 8 people there, so we just paired up or down.
Yeah, I suppose.
So yeah, we had it figured out. There was a nice clean cut after those 3 games. So let's see. So
what?
Go ahead.
I was gonna say another thing. To go along with the whole idea of maybe having a bit more variety in your decks and things like that is, some games like Magic let you sideboard, which is you can have basically like in Magic you can take, what is it? Is it 10 or 15?
Your sideboard is 15.
15. So you can take 15 extra cards along with you basically. And then in between rounds, you can swap out one for one from your deck and sideboard, correct?
Right, and you would be able to do that. The big thing about that is that you could certainly do that between matches, but you are also allotted time between each game within a match to do that. So if you have a bad matchup, you can take key cards out and change up the dynamic of your deck within that same match. Which is kind of why I was asking about why don't they do best of 3. And even if it was a matter of swapping out, if you're talking about maybe a third of your deck, so that'd be like 10?
I don't know if
like 10 cards maybe?
I don't know if you do like a full 10 if Destiny was to implement a sideboard. I don't think you would want to go that many cards. I mean, I could maybe see
5.
Yeah, I'd say like 4 or 5 would probably be adequate, I think.
But then I think we also get into the problem of if you're facing a meta deck and you're not using a meta deck, is it going to help you a whole lot? Because do you have to build in counters to the meta decks at the expense of yourself not having a winning deck if you're playing to, defensively beat a meta deck?
Right, and that's a big question that kind of gets into that, because that's one thing I'm actually not sure how to even answer, because this is my first CCG, so didn't even know what a sideboard was until people started bringing it up. I was like, that's new. So I mean, it's something that could be interesting, but yeah, I mean, if you're bringing in, well, it's just same if you're making a deck normally. If you're teching against mill, you might be handicapping yourself against the other decks that might be out there. Or if you're going for a specific deck that's doing well, you may not. Yeah, you may beat it, but you may not be doing yourself any favors. So that probably could be the same thing for a sideboard. If you're specifically teching for something, well, what's the use going to be against something else?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and again, do you think that that's because of the small deck sizes? Like if you had a slightly bigger deck, you think you'd have a little bit more room to put in that stuff to try and shut down the deck that's giving you trouble, but still have your own win condition in there?
Right. Yeah. That it may not. It may be only a band-aid solution, but it's still better than like, oh, here's my standard deck that I've made and it's good against this, and oh, here comes along this other deck that is just gonna completely ignore the normal win condition and not care about other stuff, and now I'm screwed. So it might, could help, but I don't know. With my inexperience with any other games, it's hard to really know without actually having and without any experimentation with this whatsoever. It's just kind of hard for me to know. Like, yeah, I'd probably, and that might be where, the personal flavor might come in. Like, well, I really might do well with this set of cards that I normally wouldn't put in because they're not as great in all situations versus or the more typical situations. So, I could see that playing a part too.
So, I guess what is your general feel then of like the health of the game right now, as it stands currently?
So it's probably worse than it was pre-Gen Con. There was a lot of good stuff going on when Way of the Force dropped. There was a lot of experimentation, a lot of cool things that were just kind of seeing play. Like if you look around at some of the decks that have won, there's a wide variety of things that have won store championships previously. But I think and personally, I actually don't really I hate playing against Mill, but I don't mind that it exists. Like it's a thing that's out there. It's been out there and it suddenly got good. So for me, it doesn't really affect my enjoyment. And that's also maybe because the people that we play with in Fargo, nobody, a couple people play Mill, but they're, it's not like it's overwhelming, but there's a lot of people that, suddenly all the people in their area are playing Mill and it's not enjoyable for them anymore. There's a couple of, the Destiny content creators that have just started doing, we're just going to be playing the jank fun that we enjoy, and come on in with your crazy brews, but don't go bring in your mill or your meta decks or anything like that. So there's been some backlash to that. So I think it's in a healthier, the game itself, I think, is in a healthier place than it was about this time last year. Because last year at this time we were on the heels of the POMAs stuff, and that was crazy. And then also the Rainbow Nine stuff. So FN 2199, Night Sister, and Balatik. Because that deck was basically like Millier's, kind of like playing solitaire against yourself. Because you wait for them to throw their weapons, and you're like, oh, okay, you just went through half your deck. I've barely taken a turn, and we're back. My turn again. So I think it's in a similar place there, and I think the next set, maybe could be different. And actually, that one should be coming out within 2 or 3 months. Something like that, and then along with rotation. So I think it's not in the healthiest place it could be, but I think it's been worse. So this rotation is going to help a lot, because a lot of the offenders, like I said about the card Force Solution and the card Second Chance, those are going to be cycling out, around the end of the year, and it may take a little while, but eventually those will go out. And some of the other more egregious cards, I think, will also be cycling out, because when I deck build right now, a lot of my cards still come from the Awakening set and the Spirit of Rebellion set, which tells you something about those 2 sets in particular, and how often that they're used. It's great that something can stay through, up to 5 sets as we are now, but it also may mean that something's got to go.
What about you, Evan? Because I know you've said that the game has kind of lost its luster for you. I know we've kind of talked about some changes that could be made to the game. And personally, I think that the 40 card idea would be really interesting. I mean, like 30 cards, say like Hearthstone, I generally don't feel like 30 cards is too few when I play that game. But it's a different sort of game. There's not really much of a mill mechanic in Hearthstone. There's not a lot of things that make you discard cards from your hand in Hearthstone. Things like that. There's also, in Hearthstone, you still only draw 1 card a turn generally. You're not going to, like in Destiny, if you empty your hand, next turn you draw up to a full hand, and that, obviously depletes your deck again. So yeah. I think in a game like that, the smaller card limit works better. So I like that idea. Not that I don't like Destiny, but I think that could improve the game. Have you thought about this ever? Is there anything you think would maybe make the game better for you again?
That's a really good question. As far as going through the deck at a more rapid pace, the game has baked in mechanics to have you go through your deck very quickly. Like you said, you can dump your whole hand and draw all the way up, and discarding a card to affect a die is already a mechanic. So there is already self-imposed mill, so the chances of both players still having a full deck at the end of the game is very, very small. So, as far as milling as a strategy goes, it seems like it's... I know at first it seemed like we were really trying really hard to make it a thing. Like, we had to go out of our way to make mill a thing. And I think the game it excels at... Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, when the game first came out, I tried really hard to make Padme deck work, and it just never quite made it.
Yeah, it wasn't really until Legacies that mill got to be more than just a we're going to try this out and see how it goes type of deck.
And while it is certainly it's a viable strategy in a game that gives you lots of different flavors and ways to play the game. But this game's, for me, from my perception, its main strength lies in the interaction of the characters essentially punching each other in the face. That's where the game lives and dies as far as I'm concerned. Having an effect-based strategy rather than a conflict-based strategy is fine. It's not the way that I like to play typically. There's less interaction at that point. It's more of a strategy around the core of the game. So if they didn't put as much time into making mill a thing, because it seems like they have gone out of their way in the design process to make mill a thing. If they didn't do that, or if some of those cards went away in rotation, the game itself would not change for me much at all. If anything, it would go back to the kind of game that I think they wanted it to be to begin with, which was an interactive, my guys are fighting your guys, not a sub-game of, I'm going to see how quickly I can deplete your deck.
Right, and even playing, I've only played a couple games in the trilogy, trilogy way of playing, so that's just with, in this case, trilogy would be Way of the Force and Legacy. So it feels like it's slowed,
and the 2-player starter.
Yeah, the 2-player starter. So it feels like it's slowed way down in comparison because there's not things like force speed. There's not that stuff out there. There's no first ray. There's
no holdout blasters.
Right. And in general, just things seem to have the things that were cheap and easy to do in the Awakenings block seem a lot harder and more expensive to do in the Legacies trilogy, which I think when rotation gets here, it'll be a lot healthier game in general. Like, mill may still be a viable strategy, but it's like there's going to be a few cards that they're going to be losing that just put it over the edge. So I think in general with mill, I think they even mentioned in one of their articles they wanted to make it a viable strategy. I think they just overcorrected a little bit or a lot of it, depending on your point of view.
Which I think that's something to be expected because the game is still extremely young. We're applying comparisons of a game that is literally celebrating its 25th anniversary this year,
right,
against a game that's been out for 2 years.
Yeah, and Destiny's going to be barely 2 this fall. So yeah, it's got a lot of room for improvement, but it also has a lot of room to grow.
And really, if they, and I'm not sure how they would do it exactly, but if they're going to make some aspect of it a thing, I want them to make the limited environment more of a thing. That was the last thing that really got me kind of excited, and I think that's where the game can really shine because you do away with so many of the card restrictions.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you open it up more to combos that you wouldn't have before, but you're never going to be stuck with a meta that makes the game
right
stolid.
And that's the great thing about the limited format is I haven't been able to play it as much as I'd like to, but when I do, I really enjoy it because there's so many weird things that could happen. I saw a post from a guy, like he was playing Plo Koon, who his ability, he can copy the abilities of non-unique characters, and he was able to have Plo Koon with 2 Mandalorian super commandos who are normally, are villains. So, and they have an ability where you can power action, put a weapon on them and you can do a damage to somebody. Well, Plo Koon can copy them in both. So you can play 2 weapons, so you're basically playing 4 weapons in a round at max, and it's just crazy things are happening. So some crazy stuff, that doesn't happen in standard can happen. It's just hilarious when it does. So I think that's definitely one of the strengths of limited. And another, this is more on the player side versus the Fantasy Flight Games organized play side. There's on the various Destiny Discords, there's one guy that when he does his events, they have themes to them. So one theme might be, original trilogy characters only, or a big character, little character. So you have one character with 2 dice, one character with 1 die, or you can only do damage with upgrade dice versus character dice, or you can only do damage with vehicles, or tonight's melee night, tonight is range night. So having something like that to not just, we're playing the same meta decks that we did last week, or we're experimenting with a different one that somebody else played, or here's the new flavor of the month that, half of us are bringing and the rest of us that brought our home brews, doing. So it's it creates a different kind of league structure, kind of to keep things fresh, so that
someone ought to pass those ideas on to Tyler.
Yeah, so
those would, not saying that he's not doing a good job running our events. If you're listening, Tyler, you're.
Yeah, that's one reason I wish I lived in Fargo so that I could get to Destiny more often, but 2, so that I would, because that's one of the things I would have liked to do if I lived closer, is just trying to organize some of these things. It's been hard enough for me between baby job and other stuff, to organize the alt art stuff that I've been wanting to do and talking about. So it's taken me long enough for that, but I would really love to, organize something like those off kilter league nights, because that just all sounds fun.
So I don't know if I answered your question at all, Leo, but did you have any other thoughts to bring to the table? I guess I didn't really talk about the deck size increase. I guess that would be fine. If I had to pick anything, I would say make official play best of 3, because even when you go through your deck as quickly as you do, you still need to get those a good opening hand. You still need those good cards at first, and you can still get a bad draw. And I guess if you're going to do that, then do a mulligan penalty at the very least. So I guess it would be more tournament formatting changes rather than changes to deck size or anything like that. But you brought up a point that if you had a bigger deck size, you wouldn't need to necessarily nerf characters, which also a good thing. I think anything they can do to simplify the rules or keep
things less complicated.
Yeah, exactly. I think that is good for the game.
Right. So I think just one more thing I'd like to add in is that, Mill is good.
All right, let's hear it, Columbo.
Mill is good now. So Mill may be good now, but I think, one thing that it encourages is trying to find something that maybe hasn't been considered before, because Mill may not be good. So I think I'm not sure the timeline, but coming up sometime this fall is going to be the U.S. Nationals for Destiny, and maybe there's something there that comes out and just crushes Mill and is good against the field. It's just Mill's. Pol Maz was something that was good for a while, and it got a nerf in a couple ways, but there were other ways to beat it too, and I think sure, Mill maybe the best deck in the format until rotation, but I think it encourages some experimentation, because the same old things aren't working. So why are we trying to use the same old things? Let's try something else. So that's how I didn't come up with the deck that I played in the store championship. I borrowed that from someone, but that came from, Mill is good. How can we counteract Mill? And unfortunately, I didn't get to. Fortunately or unfortunately, I didn't get to play any Mill on my store championship. But that was definitely a possibility. And if it was good, it would be good. And if not, well, you got to find something else. So I think it's a little early to do a sky is falling kind of thing. Yes, there's reason to worry, because Mill is not, it's not been a normal thing in Destiny, and I think it course corrected too much. But there's still maybe something or some things out there.
A thought just occurred to me. Are there much in the way of counter spells, like instants that I would play on my opponent's turn or during his action?
There's really nothing. I mean, and that's one thing. That's one thing I wish there's sometimes character abilities and stuff that can trigger on your opponent's turn, but you can't really. There aren't really any cards you can play on your opponent's turn.
Right, yeah, they're mostly, and anything that can interact during your opponent's turn are mostly reactionary things that you've had to play already. Like there's support that when your opponent rolls out a character, as a reaction to that, you can choose to pay one and discard that support to remove one of their character dice. That's the kind of the extent of it, really. So there's not you played this, so I get to play this right now kind of thing.
Yeah, I think if they're going to take what's seen as a blue mechanic from Magic, which is mill, they need to have the other blue mechanic, which is counterspell, which would, put as many or at least a few cards in there that directly, of course, didn't CCG do that? Didn't they print cards that directly countered powerful cards, and then they got into like a recurring loop of just doing that? So maybe that's not the best way to do it.
They did do that some. They had what they called magic bullet cards that were, cards, if there was a card that was really powerful, they would sometimes, they would later print a card that specifically says cancel, Nabran leads or whatever, something like that. You couldn't use it to cancel all kinds of other cards. You only ran it to cancel that one specific card.
Okay. So I guess what I'm saying is just have a card that's like event, reaction, play on your opponent's turn, cancel card effect, or pay 2 to cancel their card if it costs 2 or less. Whatever. Anything like that. Anything that I can do on my opponent's turn to keep him from firing off that combo. I think that's not necessarily a fix, but it's a thing that I think needs to be in the game.
I don't know. I mean, that just almost seems like I've thought about that. Like I wish part of me wishes it was in the game, but at the same time, I don't know. It would almost be like that would be a really fundamental change to the way the game is played.
Because as you mentioned, Evan, it's kind of as it seems its design intent was to be a punching match between people. It's like here you take your turn, I take our turn. There might be a couple. Here's a card here and there that'll help you take more than one action. Which there's a few cards that let you take a few more than one action. But it seems that would kind of just it would alter the game quite a bit, I think.
Yep, you are definitely right. You hit the nail on the head. It removes interactivity, and interaction is the fun part. And you're absolutely right. I just argued against myself, but
that's all right.
That just proves that it's not an easy fix. If it was easy, we would have our own Star Wars card game.
The Jodo Cast CCG.
Ooh, this sounds like a winner. I'm sure everyone would play that game.
But I mean, really, there's already the perfect Star Wars card game out there, so I don't really know that I need to make my own. I'm talking about the Decipher CCG, by the way, people. You didn't already get where I was going there.
Oh, I think they got it. the one that I beat you at.
There it is.
Only a few more times, I promise.
It's only because I got a bad draft. That's all.
Sure. We'll blame it on the cube.
It's true.
I did draft. You drafted Lightside. I drafted Dark. I got to have Jodo Cast and Boba Fett.
Yeah, you had Jodo Cast in your deck. I don't know how I was supposed to win.
Exactly.
Actually, I just, in general, I drafted really poorly. Like, after I got it all together and I started building my deck, I sort of realized, oh man, I drafted way too much of this thing and not enough. I drafted like 4 interrupts and effects, and that's it.
Oh, that's about what I did too.
But I drafted about 30 starfighters And
with no permanent pilots.
no, like half of them had pilots, all permanent pilots. Maybe more like a third. I don't know. At any rate, when I started to build my deck, I was all like, "Wow, this is a terrible mistake I've made here."
Oh, well, we were trying to talk about Destiny, and we wound up talking about CCG. Such is life.
I feel like that happens with a lot of the podcasts.
Yes.
Somewhere in there, the Decipher CCG is mentioned.
It's part of the JodoCast drinking game.
Oh, goodness. It should be. All
Every
right,
time.
well...
All right, now that you've all taken your shots, I think that about wraps it up.
That's where Joe was. He was passed out on the floor from playing the JodoCast drinking game.
Before we even started, he just knew it was going to happen. All right, but yes, like Leo said, that's probably going to wrap it up unless either of you has anything else to add.
Be a patron of the JodoCast. It is fun and exciting, and you get to be on Discord for free. There you go. I put some inflection in my voice this time.
We appreciate the effort, and we appreciate you coming on. So thank you once again for being here. And, of course, thanks to Leo for coming on tonight, too, and doing all the heavy lifting on the notes this week. And thank you to everyone for listening. Thank you for our patrons for patroning. And we will talk with everyone next time on the next episode of the JodoCast. Hooray! Goodbye. Good night.